This is 9 News with Natalia Cooper.
Good evening. Legendary music producer Quincy Jones has died aged 91. A titan of the industry, Jones is regarded as one of the most influential pop culture figures of the 20th century. Throughout a career that spanned 7 decades, he worked alongside Frank Sinatra, Aretha Franklin, and produced one of the best-selling albums ever, Michael Jackson's Thriller.
As the man behind some of music's most memorable hits, Quincy Jones was one of the most Grammy-nominated artists of all time.
When you do what you love, it's not work.
Born Quincy Delight Jones Jr. on the south side of Chicago in 1933, Jones found his passion for music when his family moved to Seattle in the late 40s. Jones took a job with the Lionel Hampton Band as its trumpet player. He worked steadily with musical greats like Sarah Vaughan, Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Dinah Washington, and his friend Ray Charles.
We didn't think about money or fame ever.
The in-demand musician even arranged and conducted his friend Frank Sinatra's second album with Count Basie, It Might As Well Be Swing. The 1964 album included Old Blue Eyes' hit song Fly Me to the Moon.
Fly me to the moon.
And we had the best time. It's like being on another planet with him. Frank would say, Q, live every day like it's your last, and one day you'll be right.
Jones suffered 2 brain aneurysms in 1974 that nearly took his life. He recovered and went right back to work. He produced albums for Aretha Franklin, George Benson, and Michael Jackson's first solo effort, Off the Wall, in 1979. Jones' successful collaboration with MJ also led to Thriller in 1982. It became the best-selling album of all time. The dynamic duo teamed up again in 1985 with We Are the World.
I like to think about the studio as a place that's real sacred, where magical things happen. Hopefully, that's what great records are supposed to be about.
Good night, Joe.
He produced his first film, The Color Purple, in 1985. The drama earned 11 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. Q, as his friends called him, seemed to always have a good idea. He created Quincy Jones Entertainment in 1990. The following year, he produced the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air TV series, starring rapper-turned-actor Will Smith.
Now this is a story all about how my life got flipped, turned upside down.
You never think of retiring, do you?
Never. When you retire, you travel, and you do what you like to do, and I'm already doing it.
In early 2013, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame honored Q for his exemplary contributions to music.
I worked with every major artist in the world in the last 60 years. So it's a blessing, man. It is. You have to take the light part of your life, wipe out the darkness.
An incredible life. It's less than 24 hours until Election Day in the United States, and if most polls are to be believed, it's still anyone's race. Today it was a tale of 2 campaigns, a former president with a flashy flyover and a vice president delivering a message of faith.
This is campaigning in a way only Donald Trump knows how.
It's coming across the sky.
A flyby before flying into a new storm.
To get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news. And I don't mind that so much.
A dark closing argument in a 3-state blitz, speeches filled with unproven election claims.
Every rally.
Last night,
you don't have any seats that are empty.
He was caught out on crowd sizes.
Today, you missed a beauty.
Today, he issued a new warning if he wins.
It's going to be
So much fun. It'll be nasty a little bit at times, and maybe at the beginning in particular.
Most polls indicate this race is still too close to call. There are long lines and more than 74 million people have voted already.
My ballot is on its way to California, and I'm going to trust the system that it will arrive there.
At Sunday service in battleground Michigan, Kamala Harris was praying Americans backed her.
I see a nation determined to turn the page on hatred and division.
Leaning on past presidents for campaign support.
We are ready for a president, Kamala Harris.
Before issuing her penultimate rallying cry in front of university students.
Our campaign has not been about being against something, it is about being for something.
Kamala Harris has had just over 100 days to run this campaign, but in a matter of hours, she could shatter America's highest class ceiling and become this country's first female president. Donald Trump could also make history, the first convicted felon to be commander-in-chief.
I mean, extremely about Donald Trump. I'm scared of him being president. She's here for us and she is leading for us.
Kamala Harris will end her campaign with Lady Gaga, Oprah Winfrey and Ricky Martin. Donald Trump does things solo. Election day is close, many still wondering what comes next. In East Lansing, Michigan, Jonathan Kersley, 9 News.
We cross now to the US and CNN's Brian Abel at the White House. Brian, good evening. Good morning your time. Americans are right now waking up to election eve. What is the mood like there where you are?
Natalia, the sun is starting to come up here on the White House, and there's an anticipatory feeling here in Washington, D.C., trying to wait and see what's going to happen tomorrow night and maybe even past then, because it is such a close race that this could really go either way. Too close to call from all of the polling that we have seen. And you can also see it judging by what these candidates are doing out on the campaign trail, crisscrossing multiple states over the weekend and into today, the final day, full day of campaigning this election.
More opinion polls are being published, and if they're reflected in Tuesday's results, one thing's certain, it will be a long night. When are we expecting to get a result?
I would not expect a result tonight, though it could happen. It could also, if we look to the last election, could be days until we know who the next president will be. In both campaigns, they have geared up with legal teams across the battleground states prepared for what might be the most litigated presidential election in American history. So time will tell. We will see what happens tomorrow night with this race being too close to call. It could be days before we know who will be.
OK, CNN's Brian Abel at the White House, thank you so much for your time. And for more, I'm joined by US political scientist Simon Jackman from the US Studies Centre in Sydney. Simon, thank you for coming on the show. You've been researching US politics for 3 decades. What do you make of this election cycle?
Great to be with you, Natalia. Look, I've never seen an election like it where my own analysis and that of some of the best brains in US politics are unwilling to make a call. You can tell a strong, rational, data-driven argument as to why each side might have their nose in front at this point. And again, it's just quite remarkable that you've got data pointing either way at this late stage of the race.
From a local perspective, who's the better candidate for Australia?
Oh, that's a very interesting call. I would tend to think Kamala Harris. I think Trump, his unpredictability with respect to alliance relationships probably can't help but cause some heartburn in Canberra, whereas I think if Harris were to win, there'd be an awful lot of continuity with the current national security team, many of whom are very well known to their counterparts in Canberra. A second Trump administration, it's unclear who those people would be. Moreover, what their mindset might be towards a key relationship like the Australian one.
And I know you said it's hard, but we can't let you go without asking you, who do you think is going to win and why? Look,
I think I would, if you're forcing me to make a call, I'd probably say Harris, because I do think the turnout operation is probably a little better. It's a key thing for Australians to remember that voting is not compulsory in the United States. So much depends on your ability to get people to the polls or to get ballots in their hands. And that's something that Democrats have gotten very, very good at. It was a big key to their success, beating Donald Trump in 2020 by narrow margins, and their successes in the congressional elections in keeping their losses to a bare minimum, exceeding expectations in 2022. That's probably the one data point that I think is perhaps the one that I would probably put the most stock in at this point. But boy, oh boy, I don't have a lot of confidence in making a call one way or the other. But you did ask.
Well, thank you for answering, and it was great to get your insights on this election. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
If the road to the White House runs through the battleground of Pennsylvania, then a major stop is in Northampton County. Voters there have a remarkable track record of picking presidents, voting with the winning candidate all but 3 times in the past 100 years.
In Northeast America, the leaves are turning, and here it's president-picking season.
Trump, come on. Harris.
Trump all the way. Don't like his delivery sometimes. Sometimes he has to zip it, but I think he's the right guy for what we need.
Whoever wins Pennsylvania will win the election.
Which way is it going to go?
Harris. If it's not Harris, oh my gosh, we're going to have 4 years of disaster, chaos, and just absolute garbage.
Northampton County has a long-running reputation. Since 1920, voters here have correctly chosen the president in all but 3 elections. At the Eastern weekend markets, it's a countdown to Election Day.
In Australia, on Election Day, we have democracy sausages. Are these democracy sausages?
These are democracy sausages. It's going to be a tough one. It's a battle for both.
Pennsylvania is pivotal in the race to the White House. A prized swing state, it sealed Joe Biden's victory in 2020 and went red with Trump the election before that. In 48 hours' time, for both candidates, it's the quickest path to victory.
The streets here in Eastern paint a really good picture of just how divided this county is. A Harris sign on one home, a Trump flag at the next. The question is, which way will this political bellwether swing?
The result will be watched closely, but it's unlikely to come on election night. That's because in this state, the processing and counting of pre-polling votes doesn't begin until 7 a.m. on election day.
It's a little daunting, but we just have to realise democracy is something that we have to protect.
In Northampton County, Pennsylvania, Lauren Tomasi, 9 News.
And 9 News will have special coverage of the US presidential election live from Washington, D.C., beginning with the Today Show on Wednesday. Breaking news on a major crash south of Adelaide. A second person has died, 7 others are in hospital. Charges laid against one of the drivers. An AFL umpire suspended for dressing up as Osama bin Laden at an end-of-year function. And the board meeting that stops a nation. The Reserve Bank to meet tomorrow, Melbourne Cup Day. What are economists expecting? Returning with breaking news, a second woman has died and 7 others have been injured in a horror collision between a truck and 3 cars south of Adelaide. Josephine Shannon, the truck driver, has been charged.
Natalia, major crash investigators have arrested a 35-year-old male truck driver from Victor Harbour. He's been charged with 2 counts of causing death by dangerous driving, 2 counts of causing serious harm by dangerous driving, and 4 counts of causing harm by dangerous driving. And he was taken to hospital with minor injuries. Now, the crash happened just after midday on Main South Road at Wattle Flat, nearly 70 kilometres south of Adelaide. Phone Vision sent to 9 News by a witness shows the semi-trailer jackknifed and partly overturned, while a paramedic and witness can be seen at the side of the white ute. The side of the silver Ford sedan is torn off by the impact, and the black Ford sedan is wedged sideways against a crash barrier. Now, 2 women who were in the rear of the silver Ford died due to their injuries. One, aged 44, died at the scene, and a second died later in hospital after being airlifted. 6 other people were also injured and taken to hospital. The 43-year-old male driver of that car was also flown in a critical condition, while a 14-year-old passenger was taken with minor injuries. The 48-year-old male driver of the white ute was also taken to hospital in a serious condition. And as for the occupants of the black Ford, the 38-year-old driver and her 45-year-old and 10-year-old passengers were all taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Natalia, as we go to air, diversions are still in place and motorists are being asked to avoid the area.
OK, Josephine, thank you. 9 News has obtained video of a gunman threatening a woman on a Queensland street in broad daylight. Reporter Bailey Kenzie has the story.
Well, security video has captured a terrifying ordeal near Ipswich, a man wielding a gun and holding it to the head of a woman on Alexandra Road at Brassel. The drama began around midday today. A verbal altercation broke out in the driveway of the home before things turned physical. You can see in the video the pair wrestling over what appears to be a bag. The fight then escalating and the man is captured pulling out a gun and pointing it to the woman's head. The security video also capturing audio, residents watching on in horror.
He's holding it to my head.
Still tonight, there are more questions than answers. It's not yet clear what the relationship between this pair is, whether this weapon has been located or whether threats were made to other residents on the street. But at this stage, no charges have been laid.
The shooting death of up-and-coming rapper Pal Bidong has sparked fears of a revenge attack. The 20-year-old, known as Peasy, was gunned down early Saturday morning in North Melbourne outside a Halloween rave. Community leaders are warning parents to keep their children home at night amid fears it's gang-related. The gunman remains on the run. The Reserve Bank meets tomorrow to deliver the latest interest rates decision, and mortgage payers are holding their breath. Federal politics reporter Amanda Kopp takes us through what we can expect.
Tomorrow at 2:30 p.m, the RBA will hand down its decision on rates. But anyone expecting a rate cut tomorrow is likely to be disappointed. Most economists are predicting that the central bank will keep rates on hold. The likely reason, a persistently strong jobs market and an underlying inflation rate that, despite recent drops, is still higher than the Reserve Bank would like. As financial pressures continue to squeeze home buyers, the pressure on the government is to do something about it. Today, independent politicians coming out in support of the government's build-to-rent housing bill with some amendments. The government says the bill will increase rental supply, but it's currently stuck in the Senate without Greens or coalition support.
This joint proposal on build-to-rent ensures that 10% of all build-to-rent, including existing build-to-rent projects, are truly affordable, have 5-year leases, ban no-cause evictions.
This is decades of political inaction that has brought us to the point where our kids don't know whether they'll ever be able to afford their own home.
Support from the independents will increase pressure on the Greens and the coalition to move on the bill. But with only 2.5 weeks left of Parliament before the end of the year, time is running short.
The AFL is again in the middle of a Mad Monday offensive costume storm after an umpire was accused of dressing up as Osama bin Laden. Reid Butler has more.
A new headache for the AFL, this time involving a field umpire, Lee Howson. He dressed up as Osama bin Laden at a private end-of-season function. He got changed at the venue and his costume involved a mask. The theme of this party was characters from the 2000s, other umpires in attendance, so dressed in far less offensive attire. I think there was a Buzz Lightyear there from Toy Story. Howson is a bit of a umpiring veteran. He's umpired 147 matches. He says he regrets his decision making and he never meant to offend anybody. He has been suspended and he'll miss the opening of the 2025 season, meaning he'll miss just one match. This follows a similar controversy at the GWS Giants. A raft of suspensions for players there, including 2-match bans for Toby McMullen and Cooper Hamilton. They dressed as the Twin Towers. The theme of that party was controversial couples.
Mineral Resources boss Chris Ellison will step down after a tax probe into the WA mining company revealed he failed to disclose millions in overseas revenue. 9 News understands he'll be fined $8.8 million. The company's board today finding the chief executive had at times used company resources for his own personal benefit. He'll step down in 18 months' time. After the break, a drop in profit for a big Aussie bank. All the finance news is next. It's time to check in now with money guru Scott Phillips, Chief Investment Officer at Motley Fool. Good evening, Scott. As we heard a little earlier in the bulletin, we will have another interest rate decision tomorrow. All the signs are pointing to no change. What are the chances, though? Can mortgage holders hold any hope for a rate cut?
Natalia, good evening. I want to say yes, mate, and there's a tiny, tiny flicker, but I can't give anyone too much hope. So here's the thing. The Reserve Bank 6 weeks ago when they last met was really, really abundantly clear that it was underlying inflation, not headline inflation they care about. They want to see that get sustainably, that's an important word, in that 2 to 3% range. At the moment, it's 3.5%. Come down a bit, but probably not enough. So if the RBA sticks to what it said it was going to do, we can absolutely put in pen no cut. That being said, there is every chance they simply change their minds or use different data to justify a decision. So I don't get anybody's hopes up. Overwhelming odds that rates remain on hold, but don't rule anything out.
All right, Westpac announced its profits have taken a slide.
Yeah, a bit of a drop, about 3% lower. And those of us who like round numbers will be disappointed they only delivered $6.99 billion in profit. Couldn't quite get to 7. That's still a decent amount of money, mate. I reckon Westpac shareholders are going to be okay. Their net interest margins also contracted very slightly. Despite what it seems like sometimes, competition remains pretty fierce in the banking sector and growth is hard to come by. Shareholders, though, were pretty happy. There was a buyback announced and that pushed Westpac shares higher today.
We are getting ever closer to the US election. Do you have any advice for investors?
Oh, that is a good question. Look, at the end of the day, nobody knows what the future's going to hold, right? Whatever they tell you, nobody knows. We don't know who will win, who will lose, and what they might do if they win or maybe if they lose. So, look, no one knows what's going to happen next for shares. What we do know for over a century is that the party in power in the US has had almost exactly zero influence on the economy or the stock market outcomes during that term on average. Now, again, things will move backwards and forwards. The best thing you can do is stay the course. Hopefully you're investing for more than a 4-year presidential term. If you are, look through the politics. It might get volatile, it might get bumpy, but focus on the long term.
And staying in the US, how's Wall Street looking?
It's pretty positive for the first day of their trading week, of course, leading up to the election. At the moment, US futures predicting a gain of about 0.25% later this evening.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Natalia.
And I'll be back with your national weather forecast right after this break. Let's take a look at your national weather forecast now. To the charts, and a surface trough will trigger showers and thunderstorms over northeast New South Wales and southeast Queensland. So tomorrow, Brisbane will be partly cloudy. There's a medium chance of showers, most likely in the afternoon and evening, and the risk of a storm, 32 the top. A possible shower and 23 in Sydney. Melbourne is turning it on for Cup Day. Nothing but sunshine and 26 degrees. A shower or two in Adelaide and a warm 30. A shower or two for Perth as well and 22, and Darwin mostly sunny and 35 degrees. Looking ahead to Wednesday, and sunny and 31 in Brisbane, partly cloudy and 27 in Sydney. A possible shower and a hot 33 in Melbourne. Adelaide partly cloudy and 25 degrees. Perth will be cloudy and 21. Mostly sunny once again in Darwin, 35 the top. And that's Nine's late news for this Monday. The Today Show starts at the special time of 5 a.m. tomorrow with Carl live in Washington, D.C. and Sarah and the rest of the team at Flemington for the Melbourne Cup. I'm Natalia Cooper. Thank you for your company. Good night.